Okay, so we just spent some time talking about real boxing. Now, we're going to talk about some freak show boxing. Okay, I believe it's August 29th. It's a Sunday. Jake Paul against former UFC welterweight champion in a boxing match. Former UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley in a boxing match at I think it's at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio, which is just wild. But I feel like this fight, it's pretty simple. I said this way back in March when we did our old look ahead, the old post show on odds.com that we did with Bleed. I think we talked about it the night that Vicente Luque defeated Tyron Woodley. Actually, no. It was the night that Jake Paul defeated Ben Askren, and they were talking all that dusty jazz with Tyron Woodley. There was videos of them. And I said, and this is basically how this fight breaks down. Jake Paul's minus 150 favorite. Tyron Woodley sitting at plus 130. This is how this fight breaks down. If Tyron Woodley hits Vicente Luque, if Tyron Woodley hits Vicente Luque, rocks him, makes him, dizzy, step back, even for just a half second, dazes him. Admittedly, go back. I think it was UFC 260. Luque after the fight said, "Yeah, he rocked me pretty good. I wasn't out of it, but I was pretty dazed." If Tyron Woodley hits Jake Paul the way that he hit Vicente Luque that night, Jake Paul might not ever wake up. Okay? We're talking about a guy who has fought some of the toughest people in the premier organization of, the one of the most brutal combat sports in the world, right? Jake Paul has fought boxers with 10-ounce gloves, okay? Tyron Woodley has fought his entire career with tiny little gloves and has severely hurt people. Now, is Tyron Woodley the same fighter that he was 5 years ago? Absolutely not. Is he a shell of himself? Yeah. But that's in MMA. His striking, just his outright striking, still pretty good. And I mean, Tyron Woodley, basically, Tyron Woodley type of guy that if you got into a fight at a bar, yeah, you would definitely not want it to be against him. He would hurt you severely. Now, Jake Paul is not just some random guy at a bar. He's definitely an actual person who is a millionaire who can train, and by the looks of his Instagram and social media, trains and takes everything that he does very seriously, and is now, people say that, he's not he's a celebrity boxer. I mean, he's not a celebrity boxer. He's a legitimate boxer now. He is he is an athlete. He is a professional boxer. Okay. So yeah, he still has not taken the type of punishment that Tyron Woodley has. You look at that one punch knockout that Jake Paul had of Ben Askren. Ben Askren got knocked out with a flying knee and probably was not really ever the same again as a fighter. You look at that fight with him and Maya, just terrible striking, right? He was handpicked because of how terrible his striking is. We have not ever seen Jake Paul take a punch from a professional fighter in a professional fight. It has yet to happen. Now, if you're telling me that the first person that's going to do that is going to be former UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley, and that's how we're going to test this theory, dude, I'm all over Tyron Woodley at plus money. Like, come on. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Jake Paul is not going to... If Tyron Woodley lands on this guy cleanly once, even with a looping shot, overhand right, we're talking a professional fighter who has fought at the highest level, who's beaten some of the best fighters on the planet, okay? Who's fighting a YouTube star, okay? Turned pro boxer, who's fought nobody, and he's an underdog. It doesn't make any sense, okay? It doesn't make any sense. Tyron Woodley is the plus 130 underdog. Doesn't make any sense. I'm going to bet Tyron Woodley a lot. I already have, but I'm going to bet it again because Tyron Woodley was like a plus 110 underdog at one point. I was like, oh, I better get on this now before it flips. But no, money has come in on Jake Paul. Money has come in on Jake Paul. What are we doing here? I don't get it. You know, it comes down to it's as simple as what I said to open this segment. If Tyron Woodley hits Jake Paul with that same shot, even with the box, I think it's going to be 10-ounce gloves. It might be 12. But if he hits him with that same shot that he hit Vicente Luque with in his last fight in the UFC, if he hits him with that same looping overhand right that he hit Vicente Luque with, this fight's over. And that's not even a crisp technique boxing type punch, right? That was just a looping overhand right. This guy's been training with some of the best fighters in the world. He's training with Floyd Mayweather. Now, this is one thing that I'm kind of concerned about. You don't want to change what got you to the dance, but really Woodley is washed as an MMA fighter, and he wants to pursue boxing professionally. And I think the way that he does that, he catapults himself to the next level to be able to, enter professional boxing is obviously to, get the W for professional MMA over this clown, Jake Paul, and to get the win, to shut him up. That will make him a star, not even just in the MMA world, but in the pro boxing world too, right? So there's a lot on the line. There's a lot on the line in this fight, in this freak show fight. The stakes are high in this freak show fight. So yeah, I'm going to take a look at the props, but what are we doing here, people? We're in the twilight zone right here if we think that Tyron Woodley should be a betting underdog. It doesn't make any sense. And especially if you go back and look at that the fight against Luque, Woodley came out hot, right? He came out hot with those overhooks and was just trying to grapple and nullify that hitting power of Vicente Luque. And I feel like, his coaches were like, you only have your backs against the wall here. You really only have one shot to win this fight. You can't do the same thing that you did against Colby Covington. You can't just, lose every round of the fight by having your back against the cage and taking strikes and getting pinned against the cage. You have to come out super aggressive. You're at your best when you're super aggressive. I feel like that's how he's going to come out in this fight. He's going to come out super aggressive. So I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks Jake Paul out in the first round. I don't even know how many rounds this fight is. I think it's 8. 8 rounds. Over 3.5 rounds is the betting total, which is interesting. And it's a criminal line of -110 on the over. Under 3.5 rounds is -125. So big time juice. Big time juice. Big time vig, basically, on both sides there. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a guy who beat Wonder Boy. Talking about a guy who beat Robbie Lawler. Against a YouTuber, okay? And I feel like the only thing that made Tyron Woodley less of a fighter was just having to deal with all the aspects, all the nuts and bolts, because MMA, there's levels to it, right? It's not boxing. I think with boxing, Tyron Woodley's an athlete, right? If somebody said, "Hey, we'll give you a couple $1 million if you want to try to play baseball," I bet he could do it. He might not be the greatest player at it, but he's an athlete. He's an athlete. He's super old, well, for an athlete, but he's an athlete. He's really good at doing athletic things. And put him in boxing. Add in that championship experience. This guy fought for the UFC welterweight championship 4 fights ago. In 2019, he fought for the UFC welterweight championship. He lost it. He held it from 2016 until 2019 and then lost it in 2019. 4 fights ago, he fought for the UFC welterweight gold and lost to Kamaru Usman. Now he got 50-45 in that one. And I think he got 50-45 to Burns, and he was going to get 50-45 to Colby. And then he lost in the first round to Vicente Luque, but not without rocking him with a huge shot that Vicente Luque admittedly said hurt him. Vicente Luque, noted professional fighter, high-level professional fighter. Jake Paul, noted high-level professional YouTuber who boxes for a hobby. And I'm trying not to take away anything about him, but honestly, if this was anybody else, we'd be like, what are we doing here? But he's got mass hypnosis going on. People think that he's suddenly become Canelo, right? So yeah. Fight goes the distance is 7-1 odds. Yeah, fight goes distance, no. Probably a huge lock. Paul wins by TKO -120. Tyron Woodley by TKO +145. And let's look. Woodley by first round knockout, 12-1 odds. Paul by first round knockout, 8-1 odds. Yeah, it's 8 rounds. Fight ends round 1 +450. All right. Well, that is interesting. Okay, guys. If you haven't liked the video, subscribe to the channel.